Yo, what is up? For about a month by now, I've had the absolute pleasure of getting to re-experience TF2's many fallen weapons. Some of the most fun unlocks in the entire game that ended up being destroyed by nerfs. With the help of some awesome plugins, we have revived these dead weapons and got the chance to play with a lot of weapons that we haven't been able to use for up to a decade in some cases. Reverting all of these nerfs and having so many more playstyles to play around with has been a breath of fresh air, and it made the game feel incredibly fun once again. And it made me think of all the wasted potential when it comes to TF2's balancing, and how different this game would be if Valve didn't take such a bafflingly stupid direction that they ended up going with. Before I begin, since it is Thanksgiving, I would like to extend a thank you to all of those that joined castaway.tf, especially in the last couple of weeks. We got a lot of new members, and I would really like to thank the American people. Before I said, we couldn't fill up any American sessions, it was going to shit. No more. I gave the call to arms, and the American people have answered, and we have had full sessions in America almost every single day in the past couple of weeks. So to those of you who have already joined, once again, thank you, and I hope you stick around. And to those of you who haven't joined Castaway yet, well, now is a really good time to do that. Currently, we have servers that fill up basically every single day in America and in Europe. And as far as I'm concerned, this is just the best way that you can play the game. Playing on Castaway in the last couple of months has been the most fun that I've had with Team Fortress 2 in a literal fucking decade. Alright, now let's get to the meat. TF2 has massive issues with its weapon balancing, and this is something that is universally agreed on by basically everyone. Now, while everybody agrees that the weapons in TF2 are fucked up, and there's a lot of unlocks out there that have some serious problems and they need to be tweaked and they need to be fixed, the way people define the problems and what the problems actually are with the unlocks, this is when you get into a situation where people have very different points of view. Now, the problem that I see with TF2's weapon balancing is that half of the unlocks in this game are fucking useless trash, and there's no real reason for you to even equip them. And somehow, in some way, this is actually an unpopular and like strange opinion to have, that the weapons in this game, most of them are fucking shit and they need to be buffed. Like that, you don't hear that at all. Somehow, some way, even after all the fucking nerfs that this game has seen, and all the weapons that were ruined, it's still not enough. The vast majority of the complaints that you hear about weapon balancing in TF2 to this day is going to be about, oh, this weapon's overpowered, this is busted, it's unfair, it needs to be nerfed. The constant crying and bitching about every single unlock in the game that isn't complete trash and has some usage out there. Like, this is exactly what got us to the fucking pitiful state of weapon balancing that we have today. The crybabies were listened to over and over again. And the result of that is that most of the unlocks that were actually useful and, actually fun to use, all of those unlocks got turned into fucking useless gimmicks or straight downgrades. And there's no reason for you to even equip them anymore. Now, when it comes to figuring out where this culture of seething and crying about every single weapon in the game and trying to get everything nerfed and saying that everything's overpowered, when it comes to pinpointing where this comes from, I believe there is a triumvirate of cancer that is responsible. The way I see it, you have three primary groups of crybabies. You got the scrubs, the comp cooks, and the e-celebs. Somebody made an interesting comment, and I think this touches on a point that I wanted to make before. I think it's pretty interesting. It has to be made. Somebody said that, you would think that when it comes to people crying about weapons in the game and trying to get everything nerfed, you would think that it would be the casuals that do that. But in TF2's case, it seems like it's actually the opposite. You know, it's the competitive players who are trying to get everything nerfed. The only thing I would do is I would replace the word casual, because there's nothing wrong with playing games casually. Like, that's completely fucking normal. Replace the word casual with scrub or shitter. But what I've seen is that there's actually a lot of overlap. It's not one or the other. It's not just the scrubs. It's not just the competitive players. It's both of them. And they usually agree on weapon balancing, strangely enough. The reason why I don't agree with the word casual is that most of the people that play this game play it casually. And there's nothing wrong with that. And most of the people that play this game casually, they're not the crybabies here. Like, just because you're bad at the game doesn't mean you pretend to be some sort of fucking authority on game balance. And it doesn't mean that you fucking cry about everything in the game and you want everything to get nerfed. Most people are not like that. The scrub is a very specific type of bad player. There's a lot of them out there, but they're sure as shit not the majority. So think about someone like fucking DSP, right? Like, they're just a fucking terrible player that is going to fucking cry about everything and is going to find excuses for why he's getting his ass kicked. You know, someone like that, that is a scrub. The scrub is always going to be looking for excuses on what to blame. You know, if he's doing badly, it can't be his fault. Something else is going wrong because he's not shit at the game. No, 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 no. Something is wrong with the game. It's lag. My buttons aren't pressing. Now, TF2 has some brilliant examples of scrubs making excuses for why they're shit at the game. The best one is, of course, random crits. Because if you die to a random crit, well, now you have a perfect excuse. You're not actually shit at the game. No, no, no. It's just that random crits are bullshit and unfair, and that's why you're doing badly. If you die to a specific class over and over again, like Sniper, for example, once again, that's not a problem with you. The TF2 is just a shitty game, and Sniper's a shitty class, and it's overpowered, and it needs to be nerfed. That's the problem. You are never the problem. And if you die to a specific weapon, and you're too shit at the game to know how to deal with it, and you don't know how to counter it because, well, you're just not very good, it's not a you problem. It's not a skill issue. It's a weapon issue. The weapon is overpowered. It's broken. It's busted. It's unfair, etc. etc. And that's how you get into a situation where every single weapon in the game is unfair, it's unbalanced, it's bad game design, it's broken, and it needs to get fucking nerfed. And basically any weapon that has any usage at all and has some usability, you're gonna have a fucking congregation of scrubs going around and fucking crying about it and calling it overpowered. So the Wrangler is overpowered, obviously, even though it really fucking isn't, and it never was, really. You know, the fucking kunai is overpowered, even though it's not even the fucking best knife that Spy has. But, you know, I guess when you're playing against bots, it could be overpowered. You know, against human players, not really. Swear to God. Very recently, I heard a guy crying about the fucking flying guillotine, the cleaver. Not any previous version of the cleaver, not the Sandman cleaver combo. No, 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 no. I heard a guy crying about the modern version of the flying guillotine, the nerfed version. And someone was saying that it's just the stupid item and it shouldn't be in the game. And it lets the scout like spam and like just like demo man. It's like, and I listen there. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Just listening to the retarded shit that people come up with to justify why a weapon that they don't like is somehow overpowered is just honestly insane. And of course, you know, hey, the scorch shot. That's a really busted, overpowered weapon. It just breaks the game, as we all know. I mean, yeah, there's a point to be made about the scorch shot. I've been using the scorch shot almost exclusively when I played Pyro in casual matchmaking for however many fucking years at this point. Now, let me tell you something. That's not a problem with the scorch shot being overpowered. That's a problem of the scorch shot is the only good secondary that the Pyro even fucking has. Now, let me ask you a question. Is the Pyro not allowed to have a good secondary weapon? Is that an actual problem, and does that break the game? And maybe, just maybe, The solution to Pyro having one good secondary that is always being used isn't to nerf the one remaining secondary weapon that is still good, but maybe the solution should be you buff the other secondaries that are fucking bad. Like, I'm just saying, maybe that could be the solution. And it's funny, when I'm playing on Castaway, when I'm playing on servers with weapons that are reverted to their former glory, when I play Pyro, I don't have to use the Scorch Shot anymore. I actually have a second option, at least two options now. The second option is, of course, the reserve shooter. But just by the fact that I have two options in my secondary slot that are good, like, I have increased my options by 100%. And all I'm saying is, I wish I was in a timeline where instead of fucking nerfing anything that's good, Valve actually went out there and buffed the weapons that needed to get buffed instead. And you actually had a bunch of options in your secondary slot that you could equip, and you could have fun with all of them, and they would all be viable. Now that is the fucking timeline that I wish I lived on. But of course, me saying this is complete sacrilege because the reserve shooter really was overpowered and it really did deserve a nerf. And it's not enough that the one other secondary that the Pyro had that had any usability was nerfed. No, the one that's still remaining, the Scorch Shot, that is also just fucking something that needs to go today. Pyro is not allowed to have good weapons. No. Another good example from Pyro is the Dragon's Fury, the primary that was added in Jungle Inferno. Of course, Jungle Inferno was the update that nerfed a bunch of fucking good weapons. And the Dragon's Fury, a weapon that they added in with this update, was almost good. It was almost viable. It needed a buff, but it was a very good concept. It was almost good. It just needed a good buff, and it would actually be something worth equipping. And not only did they not buff it, they fucking nerfed it. And this is the point of the video. This is what I'm trying to say. There's so many fucking weapons in this game that desperately need buffs. There's like 30 weapons in the game that need to get buffed, and somehow all the focus and everything that people talk about when it comes to balancing is, oh, this is a bad weapon, it's unfair, and it's overpowered, and it needs to be nerfed. To this day, like, we haven't fucking murdered enough unlocks in this game, and we need to kill everything that's left. And of course, not just weapons. After we nerf all the fucking weapons in this game, let's move on to fucking destroying the class balance too. And then we're gonna have a perfect game when everything is equally fucking boring and useless and unfun. So I take the very strange, the very edgy, the controversial position by saying that TF2 needs more options and it needs more fun weapons. And instead of removing the few options that TF2 has left as far as unlocks go, like, there needs to be a much more bigger focus on actually fucking making weapons better and not worse. Mea fucking culpa. Excuse me. God forbid I say something this ridiculous. But, it is what it is. This is what I believe. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible for a weapon to be overpowered. And I'm not saying that, no weapon ever deserves a nerf. But what I'm saying is that those are very exceptional cases. Like, you will find very few examples in TF2 history where that's actually a thing, where a weapon is actually overpowered and it needs a nerf. But the shit that people come up with when they complain about weapons and when they ask for weapons to be nerfed and when they say that a nerf was justified, like, some people are going to say that a weapon needs to get nerfed because it's annoying. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, just because something is annoying to you doesn't mean it's annoying to everyone. And, like, anything can be annoying. Anything that has any usability and viability and anything that a good player can use to kill you can be annoying, because dying is annoying. Oh, this weapon needs to get nerfed because it's not fun to play against. Again, what the fuck are you talking about? What is fun to play against? Like, I guess if a weapon makes the guy that's using it retarded and, like, useless, then that's fun to play against, I guess. But anything that kills you, I mean, it's not fun to fucking lose to anything. It's not fun to die. So, anything that can kill you or cause you any harm, I mean, it's not really fun to play against. So, just remove any source of damage from the game, because it's not fun to get a hit. It's not fun to get shot at. It's not fun to die, is it? Like, what the fuck, man? So I try to think up of some criteria of what would actually make a weapon overpowered. Okay, so first of all, it actually has to be strong. Obviously, it needs to be good. Otherwise, who cares? Secondly, it has to be very easy to use. A weapon that's strong and easy to use is going to be a pain in the ass, obviously. Thirdly, it needs to have no significant downsides. And the last part is the most important. It has to have little to no counterplay. So if you have a weapon that fits 3 out of 4 of those criteria, then you can say it's overpowered and it needs to get nerfed. So with that said, let me show you the amount of overpowered weapons in this game that I see that actually need a nerf. Alright, now for contrast, let me show you all the weapons in TF2 that need to get buffed. Well, actually, that's not even the full list. I mean, I just ran out of space, but I think you get the idea. You get the point. There's a lot more weapons in this game that need to get buffed. But for some reason, you will never hear about this shit. You will always hear about people crying about weapons and calling them busted and overpowered and calling for nerfs. But this, like pointing out the very obvious fact, if you just take a look for 1 second, that most of TF2's weapons suck ass, like this is like a rare thing. And now we go back to the triumvirate of crybabies. As I said, you have the scrubs, you have the competitive players, and you have the e-celebs. And they all feed off on each other, and they all cry about everything in the game, and they want everything to get nerfed. Okay, what is the overlap? Why is there an overlap between scrubs and competitive players when it comes to balancing? Well, it's actually very simple. I mean, the scrub just wants everything to get nerfed because, everything is unfair and everything is annoying because anything that kills him is problematic and is bad game design and it's unfair. I mean, there you go. Everything needs to get nerfed according to the scrub, depending on what mood he's in, depending on who's fucking him that day. That's what's overpowered. And the competitive players, well, they just want to play discount Quake with Uber. So anything that isn't stock and a very few select unlocks that are allowed, like the fucking Uber saw for some reason, the gunboats, those are fine. There's like 4 unlocks in the game that are acceptable, and everything else, anything that could shake up the meta, well, that can't be in the game. That's terrible, and it needs to be nerfed. Better yet, just removed. I mean, there's no real logic to it. Like, both of these groups just want to nerf a bunch of shit because they don't like it. At the end of the day, that's just what it is. And, that's how you get into a situation where something like the base jumper is considered game breaking to competitive players because, it's really not a good weapon at all. Like, even before it got nerfed to shit in Jungle Inferno, even back then it wasn't a really good weapon at all. But you still gotta ban it. And even after Valve kisses your ass and listens to you and nerfs the base jumper specifically to placate you, you're still gonna keep the base jumper banned. Because, listen, I can't hit my airshot compilation clip anymore, so it's overpowered. It breaks the game. And somebody out there might be telling me that, oh, competitive players, they're very rational. They're very logical when it comes to banning weapons and when it comes to them disliking a lot of the unlocks in Team Fortress 2. Well, that's just because they take the game very seriously and they want to keep it as skill-based as possible. Okay, let me just give you a quick example on why that's complete bullshit. And that example is the Iron Bomber. The Iron Bomber had a bug that for years, for literal years on end, made it so that the Iron Bomber pipes had a hitbox that was twice as big as regular grenade launcher pipes. And you would expect the competitive players, I mean, this is the reason why they invented weapon bans in the first place, right? Like this is a cut and dry case where a weapon is broken, it's literally bugged, and because of an unintentional break in the system, it gives you a hitbox twice as large as it should have. Like that's obviously a situation where a weapon needs to be banned. And of course, the punchline is that they didn't ban this weapon. For years on end, this weapon was broken. It gave you twice as big of a hitbox as it should, unintentionally, and the competitive leagues just kept it in. It was completely fine. It was allowed, and every single top demo man player in competitive TF2 was using it without an issue. And then these same people are going to ban the fucking base jumper. They're going to ban the base jumper because, oh, that's just broken. That's broken. That's a bullshit gimmick, and it breaks the game. The Iron Bomber unintentionally giving you pipes that are twice as big as they should be, that's completely fine. That's not a problem. But the base jumper, oh shit, that's gotta go. That shit is fucking insane, man. And even after Valve kissed their fucking ass, and they fucking listened to them specifically, and nerfed the base jumper to placate them, they're still gonna keep it banned to this fucking day. Now, after hearing that, ask yourself a question. Do you think these people should have an input on TF2's balancing? Do you think these people have the interests of TF2 at heart? Do you think they want to make the game more fun? Do you think they want more options in the game? Do you think they want to make the game more skill-based even? Yeah. Don't answer that. This is one of them rhetorical questions. And finally, we go to the E-celebs, the last part of the troika of crybaby cancer. And of course, the E-celebs are massive Valve apologists, and they're going to say that there's nothing wrong with the game, and TF2 is perfect. All of the balancing decisions in this game made perfect sense. Jungle Inferno was actually a great update, and, nerfing the base jumper and the bonk and shit like that. That was actually genius. And, the Ambassador nerf isn't that bad. It's still usable. Totally. The Sandman nerf was completely fine. In fact, they didn't go far enough, if anything. And the explanation to this is very simple. If you're a Valve apologist, that's very good for your e-grifting career. Because God forbid you talk negatively about Daddy Valve. I mean, that's just not acceptable. That is oof yikes, not a wholesome 100. Also, the E-celebs and the comp cooks, they're in bed in some way. For some reason, they're always sucking each other off. The best example of this is, Uncle Dane's classic, revolutionary video, Trickle Down Balance, right after Jungle Inferno comes out and, destroys like a dozen weapons and nerfs them to shit. Uncle Dane comes out and tells you about the glorious vision of trickle down balance and how listening to the pros is going to save TF2. But you gotta say, trickle down balance. That's a fucking genius name. I mean, it's pretty accurate to life too. Trickle down economics, trickle down balance. I mean, it's very fitting. You gotta admit, very fitting. I mean, we're all fucking homeless now. Another great example is Schizolite. Excuse me, not Schizolite. Scholarlight, one of the finest minds of the 21st century. In my Jungle Inferno video, came over and he fucking owned me with facts and logic, epic style, in the comments, where he wrote an essay or two about how, I'm actually a fucking idiot and that all of the nerfs in Jungle Inferno were completely justified and make sense, and that the base jumper really was overpowered as shit, and it didn't fit Robin Walker's vision. And Jungle Inferno was actually awesome. So there you have it. That's the triumvirate of crybabies. You have the scrub who just cries about everything because he's shit at the game and he can't deal with anything, and everything is overpowered to him. You have the comp cook who just wants to keep his fucking stale 20-year-old ass meta without any changes ever, and he's going to ban anything that deviates from that. And then you have the E-celeb who feeds both of those. The E-celeb is going to feed the scrub by making shitty video essays about the problem with the squirt shot and how it ruined the game, and then he's gonna suck off fucking comp cooks and say that they're the future of TF2 and people are gonna be installing TF2 in 5 years to play competitive, and Valve needs to listen to the pros, and then the game is going to be perfect. Anyway, what am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say is that I wish I was in the timeline where Valve actually had some fucking balls and they didn't listen to these fucking crybaby cancerous apes that want to remove and squeeze every single ounce of fun out from the game. Like, can you imagine if Valve, instead of nerfing any weapon that was actually fun and good and viable, imagine if instead of nerfing weapons, imagine if they fucking buffed the weapons that were shit. Like, I want to be in that timeline instead. And what I'm trying to say to you is that these fucking clowns are full of shit, man. And you shouldn't be listening to them. Valve shouldn't have listened to them, and you shouldn't be listening to them either. If you're fucking Roberto Gonzalez 2014 and you're watching some sort of a Valve apologist Iseleb fucking talk about how the base jumper was overpowered and how the Sandman used to break the game and how the ambassador's actually still not that bad, and you actually start believing this shit, stop. You are being fed actual fucking propaganda. You are being brainwashed. And in fact, you are being brainwashed to hate fun. And all I'm saying is that you should try, you should dare to do the unthinkable and actually have fun in Team Fortress 2 using the multiple side grade playstyles that were added in specifically to spice up the gameplay. Like, that was the reason they were fucking added in. I know, this is fucking crazy. Having fun in Team Fortress 2, having options, having weapons that are good. I mean, this is just an insane concept. But try. Just trust me on this one, bro. But of course, I have to end this video by saying that Valve is probably never going to do another balance patch ever again in TF2. That's probably due to the fact that Jungle Inferno had quite a negative reception. And, I wonder what the culprit could be. I wonder why people weren't satisfied with Jungle Inferno. Could it possibly be that nerfing a bunch of weapons and removing options and playstyles from the game pisses a lot of people off? And maybe if you made an update where you buffed a bunch of weapons instead of nerfing them, maybe that would go down a little bit better. I don't know. Irrelevant, doesn't matter. It's never going to happen again. And that is why, once again, I am inviting you to join castaway.tf. If you want to experience the joy of actually having side grade weapons that are useful, viable, and fun to use, this is basically the only way you can experience that. It's never coming back to official TF2. So if you join the Castaway Steam group and the Steam group chat, you will be notified of when we're trying to fill up the server, and you can join and have some fun. We have servers in Europe, America, and Australia. With that said, I'll see you there.